Israel announces emergency in Lod as unrest spreads. Israel has declared a country of emergency in the central metropolis of Lod after rioting through Israeli Arabs, as combat between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants intensified. Cars had been set alight and a father and daughter, both Israeli Arabs, died when a rocket hit their car. Palestinian militants fired thousands of rockets deep into Israel, whilst Israel carried out heavy air strikes on Gaza. At least 40 human beings have died in some of the worst violence in years. Israel's Navy says it is focused on militants in Gaza in response to rocket assaults on Jerusalem and different areas. More than 1,000 rockets have been fired in the direction of central and southern Israel by means of Palestinian militants, given that Monday evening, when fighting unexpectedly escalated, the Israeli military said. The Palestinian militants stated they centered the Israeli metropolis of Tel Aviv after an Israeli air strike demolished a tower block in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday. A second tower block collapsed in the Gaza Strip after every other Israeli strike. Residents had been warned to evacuate the 12-story Al Jawara Tower. However, health officers say there had been nonetheless civilians' deaths. More than 200 missiles had been fired at Tel Aviv and Beersheba after the tower attack, Palestinian militants stated. The combat got here after weeks of rising tensions that had been stoked via violent confrontations between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at a website in Jerusalem that is holy to each Muslims and Jews. The worldwide neighborhood has advised each facets to quit the escalation. The UN's Middle East peace envoy, Tor Winsland, stated they have been escalating toward a full-scale war. At least 35 Palestinians, together with 10 children, and 5 Israelis have been killed in the violence so far, in accordance to fitness officials. Protests with the aid of Israeli Arabs broke out in Lod, a town near Tel Aviv, and escalated to full-scale rioting, with protesters throwing rocks at police, who replied with stun grenades. The protests observed the funeral of an Israeli Arab man who died at some stage in unrest in the metropolis a day earlier. At least 12 humans have been injured in the clashes, Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported. As nighttime fell, the state of affairs degenerated in Lod, police said. On Wednesday morning, a 52-year-old father and his 16-year-old daughter have been killed when a rocket hit their car, additionally severely injuring the mother, in accordance to the Times of Israel. Israeli media suggested that synagogues and countless corporations had been set on fire, whilst Reuters information business enterprise stated there have been reviews of Jews stoning a auto that was once being pushed by means of an Arab resident. On Tuesday night, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared a nation of emergency in Lod. Israeli border police have been introduced in from the West Bank. The Times of Israel stated this used to be the first time the authorities had used emergency powers over an Arab neighborhood because 1966.